As-salaam wa-alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Year 6 of the 17 Verses podcast. I'm your host, Maher Haq. In this podcast, we take a small selection from the Quran every day and recite it to you in plain English, so you can get a small slice of God's Word while you go about your day. By averaging 17 verses per day, we're able to break the Quran down into manageable pieces and finish it in 1 year. If you enjoy the podcast, please help spread the word. Tell your friends and family, subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you get your podcasts, and write us a review. Show notes and a text episode can be found at 17verses.com. That's the numbers 17verses.com. Today's selection is the entirety of Surah 82, Al-Infitãr, or the Cleaving Asunder, verses 1 through 19. This surah covers three major points: a description as to what will happen on the Day of Judgment, the fact that guardian angels are assigned to each individual, recording each and every action, and finally, Allah Himself will be the judge on that day. Tafseer for this surah concerns the last three verses, when it is asked twice, what is the Day of Judgment, and then answered in the last verse regarding personal versus collective responsibility. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. When the heavens will cleft asunder, when the stars will scatter, when the oceans will be torn apart, and when the graves will be laid open, then each soul shall know what it has sent forth and what it left behind. O man, what has lured you away from your gracious Lord, who created you, fashioned you, proportioned you, and molded you in whatever form He pleased? Nay, in fact, you deny the Day of Judgment. You should know that guardian angels have indeed been appointed over you, who are noble writers. They know all that you do. On that day the righteous will surely be in bliss, while the wicked will indeed go to hell. They shall enter it on the Day of Judgment, and they shall not be able to escape from it. What will explain to you what the Day of Judgment is? Again, what will explain to you what the Day of Judgment is? It will be the day when no one shall have the power to do anything for another. For on that day, Allah shall keep the entire command to Himself. Ameen. Tafseer for this surah concerns the last two verses, which ask repeatedly, what is the Day of Judgment? And then it's answered in the last verse regarding personal responsibility. Quote, we can speak of rewards and punishments, the fruits of actions, the resurrection and the tribunal, the restoration of true values, the elimination of all wrong, and 100 other phrases. They might serve to introduce our minds vaguely to a new world, of which they cannot possibly form any adequate conception under present conditions. The question is repeated in verses 17 and 18 to emphasize this difficulty, and a simple answer is suggested as explained in the next verse. Now, concerning the next verse, quote, the answer is suggested by a negative proposition. No soul shall have power to do anything for another. This is full of meaning. Personal responsibility will be fully enforced. In this world, we all depend on one another approximately, though our ultimate dependencies always are on Allah, now and forever. But here, a father helps a son forward. Husband and wife influence each other's destinies. Human laws and institutions may hold large masses of mankind under their grip. Falsehood and evil may seem to flourish for a time because a certain amount of limited free will has been granted to man. This period will be all over then. The good and the pure will have been separated from the evil and the rebellious. The latter will have been rendered inert, and the former will have been so perfected that their wills will be in complete consonance with Allah's universal will. The command thenceforward will be wholly with Allah. Thanks. This concludes today's episode of the 17 Verses podcast. I hope that this selection helps increase your understanding of the Holy Quran just a little bit. If you like the podcast, you can subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher and write us a review. Or you can grab the RSS feed and put it into your own podcast app. The show notes, including a text version of this episode, can be found by going to 17verses.com. That's the numbers 17verses.com. Thank you. and be well.